Hello, my dear students. How are you all? I hope you all are fine. Welcome to Creative Writing lesson. Well, as you all know that now new term has started, so we are now following our new syllabus. And this is our first lesson of creative writing. So let's see what we are going to do in today's lesson. Oh wow, today we are going to do story writing. I'm really excited and I can't wait to start today's lesson. So let's see what we are going to learn in today's lesson. Okay, students. When I was of your age, so I was really fond of sharing stories and sharing different gossips with my friends. But at that time, I was not knowing that actually what does story mean. So story is basically a tale that is made up for entertainment, or you can say it's a retelling of something that has already occurred, or it can be a piece of gossip as well that you can share with your friends. A story is also an account of imaginary or real people and events told for entertainment. It means any event, any imaginary event, or any real event, or any piece of gossip that you share with your friend for entertainment is story. An example of a story is when you tell everyone what you saw in a sentence. Okay, it's basically a recap. Elements of a story we already have done in previous presentations. So it's just a recap. For writing a good story, some important parts are necessary. Some important elements are necessary for writing a good story. When you pay attention to the story elements, it helps you to learn all what about a story. So there are basically 5 story elements: characters, setting, problem, solution, moral or theme. These are the 5 story elements which are really important for writing a good story. Here is, I have given you a link as well, so go and do watch this video. It will help you to understand about story elements.
This video is about the elements of a story. The first element we're going to talk about are the characters. The characters are who or what the story is about. The next element is the setting. The setting is where, like in a store, and when, like on your birthday, a story takes place. The next element are the major events or plot of the story. Generally, things start out okay, but then the character has to overcome some challenge before life returns to normal or almost normal. When we put all of these things together, we create a story. We pick a character, put him in a setting, and give him a challenge or obstacle to overcome. Here is a story about Ollie. Ollie got a phone call from his friend Janessa. She is in the park and needs help. Ollie hurries to the park to help her.
Janessa, what's wrong?
Ollie, my cat is stuck in the tree and I can't get him down. What will I do?
I can climb the tree and get him down for you.
Meow. Yay! Ollie, you saved my cat. Thank you.
It was nothing. Want to go get some ice cream?
Okay. Ollie and Janessa walked off to the ice cream parlor together. The end. Now let's talk about the elements in our story. Who were the characters in our story? Ollie and Janessa are the people who the story was about. What was the setting? The setting is the park because that is where most of the story took place. What were the major events? We should have a beginning, middle, and end. Start with the problem in the story. First, the cat was stuck in the tree. Then, Ollie got the cat down for Janessa. Last, they went to get ice cream together.
Created using Powtoon.
Okay, dear students, as I have told you early that the story elements is just a recap topic. We all already know about these elements of a story, but just have a quick recap with me. The first element is characters. Can anybody tell me that what is character? Yes, characters are the people in the story. They can also be objects that act like people, or they can also be animals. For example, let me give you the example of Cinderella, the story of Cinderella. In that story, there are different characters. For example, Cinderella herself is the main character of that story. Her stepmother, her stepsisters, the prince, the fairy godmother. So these are the characters of the story Cinderella. So characters are the people in the story. The next element of a story is setting. The setting tells you that where and when the story takes place. It helps build background and create images in the mind. Basically, setting helps set the tone or mood of the story. For example, now let me explain it again. It means setting tells you two things. Where means place and when means time. It tells you that where and when, the time and place of the story. For example, the story can take place in a jungle, or it can be takes place in a castle, or in a cottage in the woods, or so on. It can be in the city as well. And the time can be long ago, the time can be of future, the time can be now. So basically, setting tells you about the time of the story, that when that story takes place, and about the place of the story as well. Next is the problem. The problem of the story is a very important element. Without the problem, the story can be it's not much interesting. The problem is basically the situation that the characters are facing. So the problem makes the story interesting. For example, the problem can be solving a mystery, or it can be facing any evil, or can be any fear, or the problem can be if the hero gets into trouble. So that can be a problem of that story. So basically, problem is the situation that the characters face in that story, and it makes your story interesting. Now solution, next element of a story is solution. When there is a problem, so there is a solution. The solution is how the characters solve that problem. How the main characters solve that particular problem can be the solution of that story. When you give any problem, so with that problem you have to write the solution of that problem as well. The last element of a story is the moral or a theme. That is very important element, and without any moral or without any theme, the story can be boring. The moral is actually the idea that runs through the story. It often teaches you a lesson. For example, the right always win, or slow and steady wins the race. So these are the moral of the story. So I hope that now you understand about the story elements. These elements should be there in your story. Well, dear students, now I hope so that all the story elements are clear to you. While writing your story, those elements should be in your mind, and you have to include those two elements in your story. The next step is how to write a story. That was also a very important question, that how now you will write a story. Now for writing a story, I have mentioned here some steps. These steps will help you to write a good story. The first step is think of an idea. What does this mean? It means that for writing a story, any idea should be there in your mind. When you sit and when you start writing your story, so any idea will be there in your mind that you are writing about what. And for this reason, I have told you so many times that start reading books. At least you should give 40 minutes, daily 40 minutes to your reading. Read a book, read any story, read any novel, read any newspaper, any article, but start reading books. It will increase your imagination skills. So when you read different books, you will get different ideas, and it will help you in writing your story. The second step is create a character and a setting. Now for writing a story, as I have told you, characters should be there in your mind. Now it can be any baby, or it can be an adult person, or it can be any animal, or it can be any supernatural, any force or anything, but it relates with your idea. Whatsoever idea is there, your character and your setting will according to that. So the next step is create your characters and the setting, means the place and the time of your story. The third step is the beginning. The beginning paragraph is very important for writing a good story. So do start with a good and powerful beginning paragraph. Step number 4 is the conflict. What does this mean? I think it's a new word for you. Students, conflict is basically a clash, or you can say it's a struggle between two opposing forces. It occurs when your main character, whatsoever is your main character, struggles with either himself or with any other character of the story, or with society, or either he struggles with any supernatural force. So conflict is basically the clash or the struggle between your main character with the opposite character or society or supernatural force or anything else. By establishing the conflict in the beginning and resolving that conflict by the end of the story gives a smooth direction to your story. So the conflict is very important. It will make your story very interesting. The next step, step number 5, is the turning point. What does this mean? Any guesses? The turning point, or the turning point is also known as the climax. So the turning point is the point of highest tension. It is when something begins to change. Either the main character is about to change, or either anything, anything whatsoever your story is about, anything when starts to change. So that is basically the turning point of that story, and it is the most exciting part of the story. This is the point. It is just before a story is resolved. For example, let me give you the example of Cinderella. Yes, now you will think that ma'am is given again and again the example of Cinderella. But when I was of your age, so that was my favorite book. So that's why. Okay. So the turning point of that story, Cinderella, is when the stepmother allows her to go to that event, and she went and she dances with the prince at midnight, and the clock struck midnight, and then she ran. So that was basically the turning point of that story. So the turning point is the point of the highest tension of your story. It was the peak of your story. Next step is resolution. Resolution is when the conflict resolved, when the tension resolved, and slowly and smoothly the story starts moving towards its end. So that is known as the resolution. It might be the last paragraph of your story, when the conflict, the tension, whatsoever struggle your main character was doing, whatsoever problem she or he is facing, when that is resolved, so that is the resolution. That part is known as the resolution. And the last part is the end. That was the end of the story. The ending, 1 and 2 lines should be attractive, because it will give good impression to the reader. And I always like the story with happy endings. So these are few steps about how to write a story. So I hope so that now these will help you in when you will write your story. So these steps will help you a lot. Okay, over here I have also written, these are just an additional information that I am giving you, that there are basically 7 basic types of story. Number 1 is overcoming the monster. In these stories, the hero learns of a great evil threatening the land and sets out to destroy it. When the hero overcomes the monster, and then the hero learns how to destroy that evil or the monster or whatsoever villain was there, when the hero overcomes that, so these are those type of stories. The second type of stories are rags to riches. The initially poor hero blossoms into a mature figure who ultimately get riches, or a kingdom and the perfect mate or anything else. When the poor hero when ultimately become rich, so that these are those type of stories. It means these are the happy ending stories. The third type of stories are known as the quest. Now these are adventurous type of stories. A quest is an adventurous journey undergone by the main character of the story. The hero sets out on a mission, and he faces many difficulties, many obstacles, and but he returned with the knowledge, with the benefits of knowledge and experience. So these are those type of stories. The next is voyage and return. Okay, these are basically, it is a story where your hero faces many challenges, you can say. The hero ventures to a strange land, overcoming the threats, and returns as a changed person. It means the hero faces many challenges or many obstacles, but at the end he overcomes all of them. The fifth type of stories are comedy stories, and by the name it's very obvious that these are the funny and light mood, happy ending, cheerful stories. The next type of stories are the tragedy, and in this, the villain whose death is the cause for rejoice. These are those type of stories in which when the death of the villain is the cause of happiness. The seventh type of a story is known as rebirth. Rebirth stories tell of change or any renewal, or you can say transformation. They start with the hero when the hero was under the shadow of evil, but with the passage of time, the hero comes able to get out of that shadow. And these are also happy ending stories. So these are different types of stories. They will help when you will write your story. So do after writing your story, do watch this slide and then figure out that which type of story you have written. Okay, students. Now, there are some points that you should keep in mind while writing your story. First point is make sure you give your story an exciting and appropriate title, because a title is the first impression you made on the reader. So always give an exciting title to your story. Most of the time when I write stories, so after writing the story, I give the title. After writing the whole story, at the end, I give the title to my story. But that was my strategy. You can give, after thinking of the idea, you can give an appropriate title to your story in the beginning as well. The second point which you should keep in mind is make sure that the facts you include in your story are accurate and they do not change. For example, some truths and some facts that universally accepted truths and facts that you can't change. So make sure that those facts are accurate. If you are mentioning any facts, so those should be accurate. The story must flow fluently. If there is a series of events taking place, so make sure that the flow has some order. And I have given that order in the previous slide. Those all steps are basically the order of your story. And if your story flow fluently, so your reader will not be get confused, and it will give good impression to your give a good impression on your reader. The last point is that always use simple language. Always you do not use complicated words in your story. The best stories are written in uncomplicated words so as not to distract from the plot. So don't forget these points while writing your story. Okay, my lovely students. I hope I'm not making you bore. Okay. Now this is basically quickly open your OPE page number 4. And with this picture you must come to know that this is basically that comprehension passage that we have done it in our OPE presentation, and you have even done the question answers even. So now what is the task? Basically I am reading it, basically we read together. You will read with me, and you have to write your ending of that story. Now the writer has actually given his ending in picture number 8 till the last picture. The writer has give the ending to the story, but what you have to do, we will read the story together, and then you have to write the ending by yourself, whatsoever you want, in whatsoever way you want to end the story, you are allowed to do that. Okay, so this is lesson number 3, unit number 1, diving for treasure. Now see, such an interesting title the writer has given to this passage, diving for treasure. In the same way, you have to give a very interesting title to your story as well. Okay, so I hope everyone is with me. Open your OP page number 4. Jack and Dave are two friends and they are looking for a sunken ship on the seabed. Dave is looking at the seabed below the boat on the echo screen. Jack gets ready to dive. Okay, Jack dives into the water. He goes down to the seabed. He gets his air from the boat through an airline, and he can also speak to his friend who is on the boat through the phone line. Now, the other friend, Dave, is on the boat, and Jack basically dives into the river. So Jack goes inside the ship's cabin, and it's very dark over there, and he is going inside the ship now. Then Jack goes in the fifth picture. Jack goes into the ship's cabin there, and what he saw lots of boxes. He starts opening them. Then Jack feels something on the back of his neck. Well, this is basically the turning point of that, because he was earlier everything was planned. When he saw the golden plates and all that, so he thought to take them with him. But what happened when he feels something at the back of his neck? So that was basically the turning point of the story. And oh, what was that? Jack, that was the big octopus. Yes, Jack fights with the giant octopus, and it wants to pull off his mask, and Jack wants to pull its leg away. And then the fight started. So that was the conflict. And what happened after half an hour later? Jack arrives back at the surface. He has left all the boxes on the seabed, but he is safe. So this is the end of this story. Now the characters are Dave and Jake, and the story takes place on the boat in the sea, on that was into the water, and I have told you the conflict then arises. For earlier the story was going smoothly, then the conflict arises. The villain of the story was the giant octopus, and but at the end what happened, that the Jack comes up safely. So this is basically the story, a short story written in your OPE. Now in the next slide I will tell you that what you have to do. Well, these are the two story writing tasks. The first task is free writing, finishing the story in lesson number 3. Now, as we have read one of the story in lesson number 3, now what's your task? What do you think happens when Jack dives for the second time? Now consider that the Jack dives for the second time. So then what happened to him? You have to write down that. It means you have to end your story in a different way of your own choice. Whatsoever you want, you can write it. Okay, the next, there was another task as well, and that was a wholly solely of your own task. Write a story about a magical wizard who has cast a spell on your classroom. What does the spell do? How do you and your classmates work to break the spell? Now you have to write the story of your own choice. You have to give the appropriate and interesting title to your story. And I have given you the situation, that the situation is now like this, that the magical wizard has cast a spell on your classroom, and now what will happen, how you will break that spell, and how your classmates help in this. So you will write an interesting story about that. And do keep all the writing steps in your mind. That go back to that slide about how to write a story. 7 steps I have given you. So do keep those all steps in your mind. Elements of a story should be there in your story. Elements of a story. Now characters I have given you. Magical wizard was the main character. You yourself can be the hero, or your teacher can be the hero, or any of your classmates can be the hero. The classmates, you, teacher, these are all the characters of the story. Setting is your classroom, time you will decide. Okay, and so these all elements of a story you have to keep in the mind, and you have to keep all those steps as well in your mind. For your help, I have given you the word bank as well. So these will also help you a lot in writing an interesting story. So now it's your turn, and start writing. I'm waiting for your stories. Write your stories, then take the picture and upload it on the Google Classroom or share it on the Zoom class with rest of the students. Oh yes, here comes the most favorite part of this PPT, the novel time. Yes, the novel which we are going to do in grade 4 is Frankenstein, and this is your book. This is your new book, and I hope so that everyone has bought this book. Hmm? And those who have not, I will request them that do buy them, buy the books by today, because then because we are going to start our work now. So do buy your old books now. Okay, so today we are going to start chapter number 1 of Frankenstein. Okay, before starting, what can you see on your main page of the book? What is this? I can see it's like a monster, I guess. Or a person is also there, and he is very terrified by the monster, and he is screaming. And in the background I can see some instruments, and black background is there. So it seems that it's a very horror book. It's a very horror novel, and I can't wait to start it. Is it like this? Okay. So basically Frankenstein is a fiction book. It's a fiction story. What is a fiction book? A fiction book tells a story of people, places, or things that are not real, that are not true. It tells a story. Fictional stories are basically based, these are actually not based on facts or truth. All fiction books are made up, or they are imaginary. So all the characters, you can say, are imaginary, and whatsoever happened in the fictional stories, those all events are imaginary events. Those all events are not actually happened. These are not based on facts or truth. So basically Frankenstein is also a fiction story. It's a fiction book. So let's start our book. Okay, here is, I am sharing with you my collection of fiction books. I love fiction books, and I love fiction stories. That's why Frankenstein, I love Frankenstein as well. No matter how many times I read it, I really enjoyed it. So these are some of the fiction books. I only share with you because I want you to read them, and because these are very interesting. Most of you must have read them, and for more collection, for more stories, for more if you want to read more fiction books, so you can search them on the Google, and you can buy it and do read them. It will, because reading will increase your imagination skills, so do read them. Okay, here I have, before proceeding to chapter number 1, I have given a key plot detail to you. It's a summary of Frankenstein, that what actually, because before starting, something should be in your mind, that what will happen and what's the story about, and a key plot should be there. I want to share it with you. Uh, this is step by step details. Actually, first, what happened? Frankenstein tells it's what was the summary of this Frankenstein book? Frankenstein tells the story of gifted scientist whose name is Victor Frankenstein, who succeeds in giving life to a being of his own creation. It means he created a living being by himself. However, this is not the perfect specimen he imagines that it will be, but rather a hideous creature who is rejected by Victor and mankind in general, because whatsoever he has created, that was not according to his expectations, and then he hated him, and he rejected him, and that monster, that being was rejected by Victor and is rejected by everyone. The monster seeks its revenge through murder and terror. And then the monster gets very upset that the one who has created me, he himself has rejected me. So when he got very upset, so he starts taking revenge by through murder and terror. So this is basically the summary of this story. Let's have a look on this key plot detail. Robert Walton meets Victor Frankenstein. Frankenstein develops an obsession with science. He wants to learn more about science. He wants to learn about life. Frankenstein creates his monster. The living being which he created, that living being was so horrible that he was like a monster. The monster kills William, but poor Justine is executed for it. In the later chapters, we will come to know that who is William and who is Justine. The monster and Frankenstein then meet again. The monster begs Frankenstein, who is the creator of that monster, to build it a wife. Frankenstein agrees but destroys the new creation. First, earlier, he agrees that, okay, I will create a mate for you, but then he destroys that creation. Then that monster gets mad for that. Frankenstein marries Elizabeth and the monster then murders her. At the end, Frankenstein dies and the monster also goes off to die. So this is basically a key plot which I just want to share with you so that you will get a rough idea that what will going to be happen in this novel. Okay, here comes chapter number 1 of Frankenstein. Now let me give you a summary of this chapter. I am not going to read it because it will take a lot of time, and I want you to read it because then you feel it more interesting. So that's why I'm not going to read it. I'm just giving you the summary, a rough idea that what's going to be happen in this chapter. Robert Walton writes a series of letters to his sister Margaret and tells the story of how his polar expedition becomes trapped in ice and how one day he sees a gigantic figure in the distance. The next day he takes on board a mysterious stranger, and who was that stranger? Victor Frankenstein. So it means Robert Walton, in the first chapter, Robert Walton will meet the main character of this story, Victor Frankenstein. Victor takes over the narration and tells Walton a complex tale about his life history and how he comes to be alone so near to the North Pole. Then in the story, the Frankenstein will tell, in this chapter, Frankenstein will tell the Robert Walton that how he comes to the North Pole and why he comes to the North Pole and actually who he is. So that's everything Frankenstein tells to Robert Walton in this chapter. This chapter is basically consists of a series of letters which actually Robert Walton written to his sister. So do read it, and it will be you will feel it really really good and exciting. Okay, my dear students, here as I have told you in the previous slide that I am not going to read chapter number 1. You have to read chapter by yourself. This is your homework of novel. I have given you the homework of creative writing, that you have to write the 2 stories. You have to complete the story tasks, and then you have to upload the work on your Google Classroom. The second task of novel is that you have to read chapter number 1. I have just given you the meanings of some difficult words over here. The first word is curiosity. Curiosity means eager to learn, want to learn new. Second word is glory, high renown or honor won by notable achievements. Intent means to decide, convince, to make someone believe something. When you convince someone to believe something, to believe you. Explore, travel through an unfamiliar area in order to learn about it. Determine, make a firm decision when you are very determined to do something. Freed, not forced. These are some of the difficult words which I found difficult, so I have given the meanings. If you find any other word difficult, so what you have to do, you have to open your dictionaries and you have to find the meaning of that difficult word, and you can write on your book. And these meanings also, they should be written on your book. And homework I already have given you, that you have to read chapter number 1 of Frankenstein. Okay, my lovely students, that was the end of today's lesson. Well, today I really enjoyed with you. I hope you also enjoyed today's lesson. At the end, I must say that please complete your work on time and upload your work, the creative writing, the story writing task. Please upload your work on time on the Google Classroom, and you can also share it if ma'am asks in the Zoom class, so you can share your stories with your classmates. And do read the novel, chapter number 1 of novel Frankenstein. Do read it, it's your homework. And in the Zoom class I will ask you that what happened in that chapter. I will ask the meanings of any difficult word, or might be I will ask to tell me the summary or read. Might be I will ask someone to read that. So come well prepared in the Zoom class. Okay, in the end I must say that take care of yourself, take care of your family, your siblings. Inshallah we will meet again in another PPT. Till then, take care. Allah Hafiz.